Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Board Games Unlocked, and today I'm doing a discussion over Apiary and the first expansion to Apiary. Now, full disclosure is the expansion was sent to me as a review copy, but the base game was not. I actually borrowed it from a friend because I don't own Apiary. This was a game that kind of, for me, flew under the radar. Well, I knew about it, but at that time, just wasn't really super interested in giving it a shot. And whenever they reached out to me to do a review, I was like, okay, I'll finally play it. And I gotta be honest, I was missing out. Apiary is fantastic. This is kind of right in the wheelhouse for worker placement Euro style games that I'm kind of willing to play nowadays. In the past few years, maybe at least in the past year, I've kind of slowly started to shift back into not really the more Ameritrash games, but definitely the more highly thematic games. Not that I don't still have Euro games in my collection. I still have quite a few that I still very much enjoy playing, but the heavy ones, I just don't really have an interest in. And Apiary is right there. It is a perfect sweet spot of not being overly complex, but still having decisions every single round that you're playing. So it's an extremely unique theme. Honestly, the theme really doesn't showcase itself really in any way about the space bees. There's a paragraph or two about oh, humans don't exist anymore, and the bees became sentient and created space travel. It's that's cool, in terms of theme, but it's not there's really any, actual thematic ties to that throughout the game. But what is really interesting about this is the fact that you're kind of building your own tableau. It's an engine builder. It gives me Anachrony vibes in the sense that you kind of develop your own engine that only you kind of have special access to, while also having a main board to go out and get resources. But what's really cool about Apiary is all of your workers strengthen up. They get stronger as the game goes on, just kind of naturally too. And there's a few other games that do this, where they have increasing strength of something that will kind of make your actions better. But in this one, it's also the strength of your opponent's bees that also help you. So if you go to explore, if you go to advance, workers that are there ahead of you also contribute to you gaining access to more things, like moving the queen ship or getting new tiles. And I find that extremely satisfying. I love the idea of okay, yeah, my workers are strength 1. Where do I want to send those lower workers so that when I recall, they become stronger and I can now send them to do a better action. I really, really enjoy that. And every location that you go to, because the max that they can go up to is a 4, where can I send my 4s? Every location has a special ability. You send a 4 to advance, you get 3 points. You send a 4 to explore. If you land on a tile that has a 4 ability, you get a really good 4 ability. You send them, only 4s can go to carve, which are endgame victory points for meeting certain conditions. You send a 4 to research, which is just a deck of multi-use cards. You can plant one of those cards, which also gives you endgame victory points. Just everything you do in this game, one, is simple to do, but also leads to further, satisfying combos and actions that the entire game you're just involved in. A lot of these games can feel like it takes 3, 4, 5 turns before you finally get a setup. Not really with this one. You do setup, but it's almost like round 2 or 3 that you're boom, I'm already ready to get what I need. And this game is quick, which is fantastic. In a game like this, you're expecting an hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe even more with more players, but not really. I can knock out a 2-player game of this in maybe 45 minutes, and it feels like the game is okay, cool, we've got our engines and we're done, and you can immediately jump in and set up. Um, like one of the only and I could see this being kind of a negative on the game in that the research deck can be so swingy. Like it's like you send a worker there, like let's say it's even a strength 3 worker. That lets you draw 3 cards, but you still only get to keep 1. But if you have other ways to get more cards, there's no limit to the number that you can play on your turn, because there's each of them has a either you can discard it for a basic resource or for its top ability, and if you plant it, that's the bottom effect. But yeah, you can get it to where you can play 4 cards in a row that it's like, oh hey, this lets me build something for free, this lets me discard that tile for more points, this lets me get resources, this lets me spend those resources for points, or whatever it might be. And if you take all those and it's like, okay, well you just randomly drew into them, that could be very annoying. Now, in the expansion, it actually offers a research variant where you can only play a max of 2. And I think that is a nice inclusion. If you don't find the research deck swingy in any way, then, then ignore the variant. But if you do, if you've had cases where someone just hoarded a bunch of cards and then just sandbagged everyone, then just putting in that variant would balance it out, I think, really well. But I also like the idea of you having to go somewhere to be able to plant them to work towards those endgame victory points. Kind of like an Isle of Cats, it gives that same thing where you can keep endgame conditions that are only unique to you. I really enjoy that, and you're only capped at 2 unless you do the grow action, which lets you get these frames, which kind of expand out your hive, and then you can plant more seeds. So there's a lot that really works for me here, like in-game victory points, end-game goals, short-term and long-term goals, unique various, there's a ton of tiles, there's a ton of farm tiles and recruit tiles and development tiles that all are unique. And what's really cool is the recruit actions or the recruit tiles give you special abilities when you do a certain action. Like this one is when you convert, you get 2 points per different dance that you use. That is just something that you can do. The developments give you immediate bonuses whenever you play them, which is really cool, and those could be super powerful, but you need wax to be able to get them, and wax you have to convert to get. And then the farms just give you more access and storage to various resources. And what's cool about the farms is every time you recall, you also get a recall bonus for each 1, 2, and 3 worker that you recall back. And I think that's really cool too, because that's going to give you a semblance of strategy where it's hey, I really want to go up on this Queen's Favor track, which is kind of just a victory point track, really. And if you go up high on that all the way to the end, that could be 25 points. But it's oh, I'm recalling 3 of these workers, and I have 3 recycle bonuses that let me move up on the track. Hey, I just moved up 4 spaces, 5 spaces if you have the cool Queen's Track engine. So there's a ton of different strategies that you can go down. And all of that would be perfectly fine by itself. But what they also did in this game, and this is all, I don't think this was a Kickstarter. As far as I'm aware, it was just released. So not only do they have that, but they have different hive tiles, which are these playmats. And these give you different layouts, and they also give you different building bonuses. So whenever you build on top of them, you get a special reward for building on top of that. That's just really neat. I love spatial awareness in games, so there's a ton of these, as well as an individual faction. So not only do you have a unique hive you can build on, you also get a unique faction, which also has a special player power that will dictate how many ships you start out with, how many resources you start out with, and kind of an endgame or kind of ways to score different points or something unique to you. There's a ton of those. And all of those faction abilities can be upgraded. You spend a 4 ship to go to the grow action, you get to flip this tile, and for example, the sec row, you can build a face-up recruit for free at the start of the game, but then whenever you upgrade it, then it becomes 1 point per recruit that you have at the end of the game. So that's just really neat. Like, there's a ton of variety in this game just from your different hive and your different factions that you're going to get. So it's just really neat. Like, there's just so, like, I really don't have any, like, negatives in the game. Like, you're never really starved for resources. Like, there's always chances and ways for you to get the resources you need. Like, you're never, it's like, oh, okay, well, if I need honey because I'm trying to go for the carve action, well, I'm just going to go to this planet that gives me 2 pollen and a water, and then I'm going to go to the convert action and convert those resources I just got into a honey that I need. I'm going to do this special action that actually gives me a honey. Like, hey, like this one, the contrivance, immediately purchase 1 carve tile for 1 less honey. Cool. That costs 2 wax. You have 2 wax, you build that, and then, oh, now I can immediately build one of those carves for either free, or I can lower this 2 honey requirement down into a 1, which I just got the 1 honey that I needed. So there's just so much that is kind of going on, but all of it is completely graspable. It's not like, oh, I have to understand 5 different systems just to be able to place my worker. Because, man, if I place this worker and it's not in the right spot, I'm screwed the rest of the game. It's just very, very satisfying and super simple to learn and play, which is something that I really don't come across anymore. Like, especially with these kinds of games, they always feel like they're way too convoluted. And if they're good, it's like, man, this was great. I don't ever want to play it again. And I've come across those a lot lately. So that's my thoughts on the base game. The expansion, I mean, it's just a little bit more. Like, honestly, the expansion, if you really like Apiary, it's going to be more, which is great. But if you don't like Apiary, the expansion isn't fixing that. The only major thing that I noticed, they did a few balance changes, so some tiles get removed and replaced, and 1 token from the Explorer bag is replaced. Like, it was one that gave you two seed cards, and only now it just gives you 1. But the major thing that they changed, which I actually think is a huge improvement, are the frame cards. So in the previous game, in the base game, they were literally all the same. They all gave you 2 blanks and 2 seed cards. Now you actually remove those completely, and you have completely unique frame cards. And you shuffle them, and then you divide them into 2 piles. So whenever you grab a frame, you get to pick which one that you want from the top of. And this is such a better system. Like, the previous one was fine. Like, because if you fill out your hive, if you don't get a frame, then you can't take the advance action. You can't, like, replace tiles that you've already built. So you need frames to expand your hive. And there's rewards to do so. Like, you get a hive out, you fill out this is an additional 8 points, on top of being 8 points for filling out your hive. So there's, a strategy for just trying to go for a bunch of frames and try and get a bunch of points that way. But the base game, it was like, okay, you're going to get seed cards. That's mainly, like, you'll spend those to get resources to try and fill out the frames. Now you have kind of more choices, more variety in the actions. Like, one of them is like, this one has 2 pollens, a water, and a fiber on it. This one has any basic resource and a seed card on it. This one lets you gain a level 1 ship. This one gives you, 2 points. So they're all completely unique. Still worth 8 victory points if you fill it. Like, that didn't change, but now the build bonuses are different, which is such an improvement. Like, if anything, I'd say get the expansion just for those. But it also adds in a few new factions, a few more tiles, not many. I think it was like 4 each or something to each of the tiles. And those are, they're fine. Like, some of them kind of revolve specifically around the frames. Like the unique, like the new tile that I got, which was awesome, was the first 4 times you acquire a frame, activate one of its building bonuses. This was one of the new factions. And whenever you upgrade it, you get to build 2 frames for free. And you now get to, when you build a frame, you get to activate 2 of its build bonuses. So, but there was no other scoring system like from this one. But there was a few of those. That one of the new carved tiles was, get victory points for each empty space in your hive, not including frames. So you could actually fill out frames, but you couldn't fill out your board if you wanted victory points. But there was really barely more content in terms of like you didn't get a whole new stack of farms. You didn't get no new planets, which was interesting, and a small stack of seed cards that just kind of get thrown in there. But really, kind of did some small rebalancing. And the biggest thing is the updated frames, which is very nice. Like, that is so much more interesting to me to play. But yeah, that's the first. It specifically says on here, expanding the hive, first expansion. So I wonder if this was like, hey, they're just adding a little bit more content, but then they plan on doing a second expansion. I don't know what they would do. If they do a second expansion, I really hope it's not the same as expanding the hive, double expanding the hive, and it just gives you more of the same. Like, I would be very intrigued on what they could add. Now, it's Stonemaier, and their expansions for their games, I think, are really good. Like, I would imagine that they would add probably a new worker spot, like, because there's the 6 on the board, probably a new one for that. Maybe a unique bee would be cool. Like, instead of ones that just go up to 4, maybe like a unique bee that bee has a special power. Unique bee powers would be really cool, because you already have your unique hive and you have your unique factions, but nothing really ties into the actual workers themselves besides their strength. So adding in something where it's like everyone has a 5th bee and that one has something special about them, that would be really cool. Let's see, new tracks to go up on, I think would work pretty well. The one thing about the game that I haven't really done a whole lot with are the dances. Like, you have your basic converting, but then you have your dances, which in this case it was like Dance of Water, and you take different tiles, but instead of going up on the Queen's track, every time someone uses your dance, you get a victory point. And I don't know, maybe that's... I like that it's there if you're wanting a unique way of converting. That it's like, oh, I have ways to accumulate a bunch of water, so I'm going to do the Dance of Water and turn in 2 water into this, because it lets you choose. Like, this one lets you choose Dance of Water and something to convert it into something else. So maybe there's an engine that you could go that's centered around dances. Literally, one of the tiles on here is... Instruction, which is a new carved tile. $7 7 points if you taught a dance. That's the 7 points if you just do that. But that might be something that is situational more than like, oh, you have to start doing dances. I don't know. Maybe people who have played this game a ton are like, no, dances are a must. If you don't do that, you will lose. It's like, well, I'm probably not playing this competitively. But they are there, and they're not like, oh, this is forcing me to do it. So it's there if people want to use it. It's not even really a negative. I just never really have touched it. But I am curious. Like I said, Apiary, this is not my copy, so I don't own it in my collection. But I'm definitely going to grab a copy, because this one is just so good to teach and to play. And what's great is it also has the worker bumping, like, which Stonemaier, I think, introduced in viticulture, at least with the Grande worker. But worker bumping is awesome. Like, it's also really interesting in this game, because whenever you bump, if you bump my worker back, you have a couple options. Like, I can either keep its value and put it in, like, this landing area, which means I can't use it till I actually recall all my workers, or I can, bump up its strength. So you can kind of accelerate how quickly your workers are gaining in strength, which could be really good. And you can bump yourself and you can bump other players. But what's fascinating is that if they hibernate, one, that's how the game ends. So when you hibernate a 4 strength worker, then you actually have to place a token on a bonus, and there's kind of a majority bonus for certain hibernation tracks, which is very fascinating. But what's also nice is that if you run out of workers, you don't. It's not like there's nothing you can do. It's like, oh, it's your turn. You have no workers. Just grab a level 1 worker and finish out your turn. It's so nice. Like, you're not punished for hibernating quickly, besides the game ending quicker. They then do something where it's like, oh, yeah, you have to grab a level 1 worker, but that's your turn. It's like, nah, grab a level 1 and you just start over. So you're kind of incentivized to hibernate a little bit, or plan out your hibernations where you have a bunch of 4s out, and then you recall them all and they all hibernate, and then you kind of do a cool hibernation sweep, which can be very sweet. So yeah, like this game is just kind of forgiving and lets everyone kind of do what they really want to do, and it's not super cutthroat, which is awesome. So the expansion, like I said, it just adds more options, more tiles, more cards, more factions, more hive tiles, and that's pretty much it. So I'm excited to see what they do next. I think I'm not a game designer, so I'd be surprised if they did more than 2 expansions. Just because, I can't think of anything outside of unique worker B powers and another worker placement spot. But we'll see. They specifically called it first expansion. It'd be weird if they called it that and they're like, anyway, we're not doing it anymore. But yeah, on a scale of 1 to 10 on Apiary, like, I was sitting at an 8, but the more I kept talking about it, the more I was like, I really don't have anything negative to say. It hits all my sweet spots for a worker placement game with unique tiles, unique special powers, unique hive placement, the tableau, just the different strategies you can go down. And I think base game I'm going to give an 8, but with the expansion I'm actually going to give it a 9, because I do think the unique frames elevates it even more in terms of variety. So I think this game is fantastic. It's I don't know, it's different, because I've played worker placement games recently where I'm just like, I've seen this done before. And I guess, yeah, you've seen worker placement stuff done before, but the way that this just gels together is really just hitting all the buttons for me. So base game, 8 out of 10. The expansion bumps it up to a 9 out of 10. I wouldn't necessarily say this expansion is a must. Like, oh man, this elevates the base game so much more. The base game is trash without the expansion. But if you really like Apiary, then the expansion is just going to be more of what you already like, and that's a good thing. So that's it, everyone. That's my thoughts on Apiary and the first expansion, Expanding the Hive. Let me know what you think of the game in the comments below. Other than that, like, comment, share, subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you. Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I upload any new content. If you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and click that Patreon link to be taken to my Patreon, and any help is truly appreciated. Other than that, stick around for any other run-throughs or reviews or cool top 10s or whatever I feel like putting on. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.